Page 4, creating a slope chart and a bump chart. Here we go. This particular chart's a little involved because it's a couple of pages, but it's not too bad, right? So it's first create a category or a worksheet called bump chart. And if you're reading along, page 4, what is exactly a slope chart, right? So a slope chart shows a change in values from one period or status to another. And we'll show the rank of each customer by year in this particular chart. Used to show absolute values, rank. So let's drag revenue US dollars to rows and year to column. And next it says, let's select the down arrow on the cells, revenue pill, and create a quick table. Okay. Quick table, and how are we gonna summarize this particular table, right? So we're gonna go by rank. Here we go. So kind of taking a shape of a histogram. Drag customer description to the label. This is going to get a little bit busy, and you'll see as we get through this particular chart, it cleans up a little bit, but it gets a little involved and messy. That's okay though. And change the mark to line. So let's do that. Told you it's going to get messy. Okay. And number 6, select the down arrow on the sales revenue pill again. And go to compute and select customer description. There we go. Right click on the Y axis and select edit axis. Okay, so remember, this is our X axis and this is our Y. Edit axis. Under scale, check the reverse box. Exit. Okay. Now, step 8, click on the label box and change marks to label to lines. Okay, so let's go on the label like that. In step 9, click off of that. Change the show chart using entire view. It makes it a little bit easier to see because it's kind of cramped right here. Number 10, the chart's a little busy, so let's add some filters. Drag country and year to filter. Let's do that. Remember, this is kind of a way to query and find your, because we have a lot of variables here. So country, let's do all, and then year. Again, this is more of a Keeler's thing. I like to see my filters. Makes it a little easier. All right. Next, let's highlight. So let's analysis. There we go. Highlighters. And what are we told to highlight? Customer description. Here we go. Move years to the top of the graph. Select analysis and table layout. Here we go. Let's go through analysis. Table layout, advanced. Okay. And if we go to the next page, it says under columns. Okay. Check off the box next to show innermost level. there. Okay. And it's taking shape like the one that you can see in your handout, right? So your bump chart should look like the one below. Now let's look at only 2008, 2009. Is that the way it's supposed to look? There we go. Got to have something to compare them to. And now highlight the customer DC bike. Apologies about that. So now the next step, it says number on. Okay, so here we are on step 17. Highlight the customer DC bikes. We created our highlight toggle over here, right? So let's go to DC bikes. We can see, I say toggle, more of a quick filter. And then select all years. We can kind of look at the trend between DC bikes from 2006 to 2012, right? And now let's remove the highlight. And it says on step 20, you can change the filter to show whatever data you'd like to see. So if you want to come over here and look at different types of bikes, you could do that as well. And step 21, change the label, the title of the chart, the slope of chart customer revenue ranking. And this concludes this particular chart, which this is by customer, right? So it shows how a customer looks like the revenue off of it over the years, that particular customer, right? So going from any sequence of years, if we wanted to start filtering, we could, and highlight if they're dropping off. So the thing of always think of application and interpretation is a particular customer dropping in sales. And this is where visualization helps us to see that in particular, right? Can you spot who seems to be a relatively stable customer? Says you're looking through. Airport bikes looks relatively stable, right? Look like a couple of these customers up here dropped, and then they kind of went down in rank. Okay, so here's the next one. The unit chart, symbol chart. Not too involved. Let's create the worksheet. Okay, so what do we use a unit chart for? If you're following along on page 6, it's to show individual items, often using shapes or symbol to represent each individual. And so on this particular chart, we'll show a little bit of animation. Okay, so you kind of look at like almost like a little bit of a growth curve, but gives us the visual depiction of animation. All right, so steps. So we've already created number 2, create a new field called late shipments. As you'll see, I've already created the late shipment calculated field. The way to do that is right click, create calculated field. It's not going to work because I've already created. We have to create a new name for it, right? So it's already right here. You can see late shipments. So versus in the essence of time, creating another one, I will click on it so you can see what the formula looks like. Let's go edit. And so this is what the formula looks like, which is in your handout. Okay, next, move org description to rows. Move late shipments filter and select true. So we'll move that to our filter. Remember, it's calculated. Let's see here. All. Change. Let's see here. Move delivery number to detail. Let's do all members. Getting busy. That's okay. And let's change our mark to shape. Right? So let's go up here. And let's go to shape. And we loaded this earlier. Where's the bikes? Sign palette. And that's fine. So now we got our bikes. And next, to animate, move sales order, create date to page. This is the animator, right? So as we put it over here, this is what helps us to, if we want to turn on our play button or stop, right? So it's all within the pages. Format the visual to clean it up. Entitle it Late Shipments by Sales Org. We'll keep our page name, but let's change the sheet name. It won't change the sheet name down here, but it'll change in our title. That's what I needed to do. There we go. And now let's add our customer description. To the row. And this lets us see a little more detail, right, by country and region, right? So, and then by particular customer, as we are seeing the customer on our bump chart. One last step there is we could add the sales org, and we can use it as a filter. So let's do that. Let's do all. And then let's get on with it and do a histogram. This is a pretty easy one coming up. Okay, so page 7, following along. Let's do that. And we'll just call it histogram. And we're going to use gross profit US dollars. And then let's go show me, and then let's choose histogram like so. And now we got our histogram, right? As we talked about in class earlier this week, this is where you want to make sure that our bins, these are kind of being sorted for us. We want to give the most accurate, right? And so we're letting the computer do this for us now, but we don't want to manipulate the bin so that it tells the wrong story. And obviously we can tell this is pretty much right skewed, but all right, so let's see here. Duplicate the profit on the rows and by control drag. Okay, so control and drag it over. And let's see here, following on number 4, let's do right here. I'm going to change this to a line. I think for purposes, we need to change that. Make Control Z. Let's go back. Let's change this one to line. That looks better. And we could change the color. Let's go orange. Then right click on the duplicate field and make it a dual axis. Okay. And here we need to do a quick table and running total. Good. And I've got these flipped, so we can do it like that. Because this is the duplicate. Okay. And let's see here. We can filter by year 8. So let's turn on a filter. Let's go get our year. Do all. Okay. And show. And now we're filtering for 2008. Okay. All right. Okay. And here's the last one, a control chart. We're going to use a different Tableau file for this, and it's not too bad. This is where we add standard deviations above and below the mean. Here we go. Minimize this. And here's the chart that's been provided to you on D2L data file, pardon me. And so I've got it open. Not a whole lot to say. It is as is. We're going to create a parameter, which we've done this already, right? So right click and create parameter. And how do we name it? Standard deviations. And the instructions are pretty self-explanatory, but we want this to be an integer, means whole. Okay. Float means decimal, but integer. And we're going to set the allowable range. Make sure you click range. Minimum 1, maximum 6. And that's all we've got to do with this particular parameter. And now we're going to create calculated fields. Lower. Tab. Sum. Parenthesis. Defect. Tab. Make sure to put in another parenthesis, minus, parenthesis window. We're looking for the standard deviation. You'll eventually auto-populate. There. Oh, got it off. Go. Sum, parenthesis, bracket, defects, tab, parenthesis, star, and then bracket standard deviations, parenthesis. And our calculation is valid, so we're good to go. what I'm going to do to kind of expedite this, I'm going to copy it. So Control C. We'll click OK. And then we're going to do it for the lower or the upper band. So let's do created a calculated field. This is the upper band. And from here, we will do, instead of minus, plus. More or less the expedite time, right? So, and that is all we've got. Okay, so we've got our upper and lower band. So we're going to add both of these to the axis. Turn this off. And the way we do that, add both of the bands to the dual axis by the right side of the viz. And what we're going to do is drag these both over here. Do it one at a time. The main thing is get it right there, like that. Okay, so now we've got drawn on the axis, and we've established these particular one standard deviation above and one below. Okay, so we need to synchronize. So double click the right axis. I said double click. You can just right click, synchronize the axis. There we go. You don't have to double click. Create a calculated field to mark any point above or below as an outlier. So let's come back over. Outlier. Some defects greater than upper or sorry. I can type some parenthesis bracket defects less than bracket lower. So let's read the interpretation of this. So we're going to incorporate as an outlier if the defect is greater, than one standard deviation, or if the defect is less than the lower band. That's what, if we get a data point, that's going to basically be identified and marked as an outlier. Okay, so that's what's going on. So let's click OK. And now let's drag outliers to the defects. Make sure we're on the defects. Cool. Outlier color. And if it's true, this is kind of confusing, right? Because we got our standard deviation, the positive is orange. So I would suggest probably let's change this one to like a pink. And since it's basically obviously highlighting a little bit different color, darker versus lighter. For the false, I would make more contrasting, right? So let's make that like a green. Green for normal. And then these purples are the ones that are the outliers above and below. This is where it's kind of confusing. If we had blue, it's like, well, is blue above or below? Because blue is a lower band of an outlier. Rephrase that. Your light blue is the lower standard deviation, but if we have blue in there, well, it's kind of hard to differentiate if it's normal or if it's outside that. So that's where we want something more contrasting, which we talked about in the prior video. Just looking at this, my apologies. It looks like I've missed a step up in the earlier in the doc with these circles. That's why these, so it's kind of throwing off a funniness. These need to be lines. My apologies on that, folks. So let's go back over here to measured values. Let's make that a line. There we go. Looks a lot better. Okay, so, and last thing is we want to turn on a slider so that we can look at our standard deviations. And the last thing here, obviously we got the lines. In order to be able to look at how the standard deviations flow and fluctuate, here's a good example. If you show the parameter, right? So if we show the parameter, we can either type in, adjust, and we can see what that difference is on standard deviation. So that's 3 standard deviations from the mean. 2. Not surprising when we start getting 5 standard deviations, because at 3, we get about 99% coverage. So not too surprising on that. And that concludes the control chart on page 8. Thank you.